Have you ever felt that strange moment in the middle of a walk when everything inside you seems to soften? Your breathing finds a quieter rhythm. Your shoulders drop. Your steps stop feeling like effort and start feeling almost automatic. And somewhere you cannot see, your body begins changing the way it powers you. Not all at once, not like a light switch, more like a hidden hand slowly turning a dial. Most people never hear this part. Because while you're walking down a sidewalk, through a park, or around your living room after dinner, your body is making silent decisions. It is choosing which fuel to burn now, which fuel to save for later, how much sugar to pull from the blood, how much stored energy to release. And when a simple walk has become steady enough to tap deeper reserves. And what happens next is fascinating. Subscribe if you enjoy understanding what's happening inside your body. The idea many people carry is simple. First you burn sugar, then later you burn fat. But the truth is more interesting, and honestly, more comforting. Your body is never confused. It is constantly blending fuels, adjusting moment by moment, using what is most helpful, most available, and most protective for the situation you're in. So today, we're going inside that walking threshold. The point where your body begins leaning less on quick sugar and more on stored fat. The point where a walk stops being just movement and becomes a metabolic conversation. And especially the point where belly fat enters the story, not because your body suddenly targets your stomach like a laser, but because abdominal fat is part of a larger energy reserve your body can draw from over time when the conditions are right. Behind the scenes, several quiet systems are working together. Your muscles are asking for energy, your blood is delivering fuel, your hormones are acting like messengers, and your fat cells are not sitting there doing nothing, they are listening. This is one reason walking is so powerful. It doesn't usually force your body into panic. It invites cooperation. It says, we need energy, but we need it at a pace you can sustain. And the body responds beautifully to that kind of signal. Here's one surprising detail. Whole body fat use during exercise usually rises as effort rises, but only up to a point. In research, fat burning tends to climb at low to moderate intensity, often peaking around roughly 55 to 65% of maximum oxygen use, then dropping again when the pace gets too hard and the body shifts more heavily toward sugar for quick power. Source. Another fascinating detail. In one walking study involving sedentary, overweight adults, the pace linked to peak fat oxidation was not extreme at all. It was about 5.0 to 5.5 kilometers per hour, roughly 3.1 to 3.4 miles per hour, with heart rate around 58 to 60% of maximum. In other words, not a sprint, not breathless, just a steady, comfortable, brisk walk. Source. And one more. During low to moderate exercise, whole body fat oxidation can rise 5 to 10-fold compared with rest, while fat release from adipose tissue can increase 2 to 4-fold. That means your body is not reluctantly giving up fat during a walk. Under the right conditions, it becomes remarkably willing to open that savings account. Source. What most people don't realize is that this shift is easy to miss because it doesn't feel dramatic. You do not hear an alarm. You do not get a message that says, "Congratulations, fat mode activated." Instead, the signs are subtle. Your steps become smoother. Your urge to stop fades. Your breathing stays active but manageable. You feel warm rather than strained. Your body has found a pace it trusts. That trust matters, because quick energy, especially glucose in the blood and glycogen stored in muscle, is like cash in your pocket. It's easy to reach, fast to spend, perfect for the beginning. But stored fat is more like money in a savings account. There is plenty there, but it takes a calmer, steadier signal to make withdrawals efficiently. And walking, when it settles into the right rhythm, creates that signal. In the first few minutes, your muscles usually reach for what is closest and fastest. They use some glucose already circulating in the blood. They dip into glycogen, the stored form of carbohydrate tucked inside your muscles and liver. This is not a problem. This is smart. Your body is buying time. It is getting you moving with fuel that is immediately available. At the same time, your heart begins pumping a little harder, your breathing deepens, and blood flow starts being redirected toward working muscles. Your nervous system notices that movement is continuing, not just for a few random steps, but as a steady task. That changes the instructions being sent across the body. Insulin, the hormone best known for helping move glucose into cells, starts becoming less dominant during exercise. Other signals begin to speak louder. Adrenaline and related stress messengers rise gently. Muscles become more willing to take in glucose without needing as much insulin help. Fat cells begin receiving the message that stored energy may soon be needed. Source. This is why walking after a meal can feel so different from sitting after a meal. When you sit, much of the work of handling that incoming glucose falls on hormones and storage systems. When you walk, your muscles become active partners. They start pulling fuel out of circulation. They act less like passive passengers and more like eager helpers. That simple change can have a surprisingly large effect. Reviews of post-meal exercise show that walking after eating lowers blood sugar spikes more effectively when it happens soon after the meal rather than much later or before eating. Source. But even outside the post-meal window, something equally interesting is happening. Your body is assessing pace. If you walk too slowly, energy demand stays low and the system may never fully engage. If you walk too hard, the demand rises so quickly that your body leans more heavily on sugar because sugar is faster to access for higher output work. But in the middle, right there in that calm, sustainable zone, your body begins doing something elegant. It starts handing more of the workload to fat. Not because sugar is bad, not because your body has run out, but because walking has become steady enough, safe enough, and oxygen-rich enough to make fat a practical fuel. This is the walking threshold. Not one exact minute for everyone. Not one magic heart rate. Not one universal step count. It is a transition point where your body says, "This pace is stable, I can support this, I can widen the fuel mix now." Quietly inside your body, the handoff has already begun. And to really understand why that happens, we need to follow the timeline a little deeper, because the middle of the walk is where the chemistry becomes visible in the way you feel. Now let's move into the middle of the walk, because this is where things get interesting. You've been walking long enough for the early scramble to settle. Your body no longer treats the movement as a short interruption. It recognizes a pattern. And once the body recognizes a pattern, it becomes more efficient. Think of a busy kitchen at the start of dinner service. At first, everyone is rushing for whatever ingredient is closest. Quick, easy, immediate. But once the rhythm of the orders becomes clear, the kitchen smooths out. Stations organize, timing improves, ingredients are pulled with less waste. Your metabolism does something very similar. Around this settling point, several changes happen at once. Your muscles are still using sugar, but not as heavily as in the opening minutes. Oxygen delivery is more stable. Fatty acids, the building blocks released from stored fat, are arriving in the bloodstream in greater amounts. The little energy factories inside your cells, your mitochondria, can now process more of that fat, because the pace is steady enough to support it. This is why moderate walking often feels so sustainable. Your body is no longer relying mostly on fuel that burns hot and fast. It is blending in a fuel that is slower, steadier, and abundant. And here is an important correction to a popular myth. Your body does not wait until minute 30 to start burning fat. That idea is too simple. You are using both sugar and fat from the beginning. The real change is the proportion. As the walk continues at the right intensity, fat tends to make up more of the energy contribution. So the shift is real, but it is gradual, not magical. Source. This matters emotionally as much as biologically, because many people assume that if they didn't walk long enough, hard enough, or perfectly enough, the walk didn't count. But your body does not think that way. Your body notices all of it. The first 5 minutes matter, the steady middle matters, even brief walking breaks matter. Harvard notes that just interrupting long sitting periods with 3 to 5 minutes of light walking every 30 minutes can improve blood glucose control in overweight and obese individuals. That means your body responds not only to heroic exercise, but to repeated signs of movement and safety throughout the day. Source. So what about belly fat? This is where we need to be clear and honest. A single walk does not reach into the abdomen and pull fuel only from your waist. Fat loss does not work like spot cleaning a carpet. But abdominal fat, especially visceral fat, the deeper fat stored around organs, is metabolically active. Over time, regular walking and other aerobic movement can reduce it, especially when the walking is consistent enough to raise total energy use and improve insulin sensitivity. Source. In one 12-week walking study in obese women, researchers found reductions in both subcutaneous abdominal fat and visceral fat, along with improvements in insulin resistance markers. Interestingly, the biggest story was not dramatic weight change on the scale. It was the quieter internal shift, better metabolic health, and better fat distribution. Source: that is such an important idea, because the body often improves from the inside out, before the mirror notices, before the waistband notices, before the scale gives you any emotional reward. Your body may already be becoming more flexible with fuel, more responsive to insulin, more willing to release stored energy, and less likely to keep shoving incoming calories into the same crowded storage spaces. Here's a friendly way to picture it. Imagine your bloodstream as a road system. Sugars like small delivery vans, fast, efficient, ideal for urgent trips. Stored fat is like a huge fleet parked outside the city. Those vehicles can carry a lot, but they need traffic to be flowing well before they can merge in. A steady walk improves the traffic pattern. It opens lanes. It reduces congestion. It tells the whole city, we're not in an emergency, we're in motion. Start moving supplies smoothly. That's also why going too hard can change the equation. If you suddenly power uphill or push into a pace where talking becomes difficult, your body senses higher urgency. Fast fuel becomes more useful. Sugar steps forward again. This is not failure. It is intelligent resource management. So the fat-burning zone is not a prize for suffering. It is often a zone of steadiness, a zone where the body feels safe enough to widen the fuel blend. A zone where your muscles are working, but not panicking. And for many people, walking naturally lands there better than they expect. Then, as the walk continues, the advanced phase begins. Now your body is not just responding minute by minute, it is adapting. Hormones associated with exercise keep nudging stored energy outward. Muscles keep pulling fuel inward. The longer, calmer rhythm gives your cells time to rely more heavily on oxidative metabolism, the slower, oxygen-supported pathway that makes fat such a useful long-haul fuel. If you started the walk after eating, this phase can also soften the post-meal rise in blood sugar because your muscles are actively using incoming glucose. Reviews suggest the best time for this effect is often right after the meal, not an hour later. Source: and sometimes it doesn't even take long. Research highlighted by the NIH notes that even just a couple of minutes of walking after eating can help lower blood sugar compared with staying seated. Small movement, real chemistry. Source: there's another quiet advantage here. As you repeat these walks across days and weeks, your body gets better at the entire process. Your muscles improve their ability to use fat. Your insulin response becomes more efficient. Your cardiovascular system becomes more supportive. The threshold can arrive sooner. The same pace can feel easier. The same walk can ask less of you and give more back. This is one reason consistency beats extremes. Your body loves repeated signals. It learns from what you practice. Walk often enough, and the systems that once needed time to wake up begin preparing earlier. It is as if your body starts recognizing the music after the first few notes. And that brings us to a question many people secretly carry. How do I know I've reached my own walking threshold? Usually it feels like this. You are warm, but not gasping. You can still speak in short sentences. Your stride feels natural. The walk could continue. Your effort feels focused, not frantic. This is rarely explained, but that sustainable feeling is not just comfort, it is information. It often means your body has found a pace where oxygen delivery, muscle demand, hormone signaling, and fuel access are working together instead of competing. And once they start working together, the shift from quick sugar toward greater fat contribution becomes much more likely. For a long time, people talked about exercise fuel in a very rigid way. First sugar, then fat. As if the body had two buttons and could press only one at a time. Current science paints a much calmer, more intelligent picture. Your body is always mixing fuels, always adapting, always asking what the situation requires. At rest, during a walk, after a meal, during a faster stretch, while recovering, fuel use changes continuously. It is less like flipping a switch and more like adjusting the balance on a soundboard. That may sound like a small difference, but it changes everything. Because it means your body is not waiting for perfection to help you. It is helping you from the first step. What changes during walking is not whether fat is involved at all. What changes is how much the body can comfortably lean on it, and that depends on a few key factors: pace, duration, fitness level, meal timing, sleep, stress, and how often you've been giving your body the signal lately. This is why two people can do the same walk and have different internal experiences. One person may reach that steady threshold quickly, another may need more time. Someone who is sleep deprived, overfed, or under a lot of stress may feel the same pace as harder work. Someone who walks often may settle into efficient fuel use much sooner. That is not your body betraying you. That is your body responding honestly to context. One especially interesting finding from exercise research is that training status changes where peak fat use tends to occur. People who are more trained can often sustain higher intensities while still oxidizing significant fat. In simple language, the more practiced the system becomes, the broader its comfort zone gets. Source. And real-world walking research gives another reassuring message. When it comes to visceral fat reduction, total energy expenditure may matter more than whether you walk fast or slow. In one study, different walking speeds produced similar declines in visceral fat when overall energy use was sufficient. So if a slower, longer walk is the version you can repeat consistently, your body can still use that beautifully. Source. That is such a relief, isn't it? Because it means you do not have to bully your body into change. You do not have to turn every walk into a test. Sometimes the walk that works best is the one you'll actually do again tomorrow. Now, there is one more piece of the story worth understanding. Fat release during exercise does not always come equally from every area of the body in a single moment. Research suggests a large share of circulating fatty acids during moderate exercise comes from subcutaneous fat, while visceral fat contributes differently and is often more visible as a long-term training adaptation rather than a dramatic one-walk event. So when people say, walking burns belly fat, the most accurate version is this: walking helps create the conditions that, over time, can reduce abdominal fat, especially visceral fat, by improving fuel use, insulin sensitivity, and total energy turnover. Source. That distinction matters because it protects you from disappointment. A walk is not a trick. It is a conversation repeated enough times that the body starts reorganizing itself around it. And the body often responds faster internally than externally. Better glucose control can begin quickly. Muscles begin using glucose immediately during activity and become more responsive to insulin during and after exercise. Regular walking spaced throughout the week appears especially helpful for insulin sensitivity. Source. That's why some people notice an odd but welcome pattern after a week or two of regular walking. Less heavy feeling after meals, steadier energy in the afternoon, fewer intense cravings, a calmer mood, better sleep pressure at night, not because walking is magic, because walking changes traffic inside the body. Fuel is moved instead of stalled. Signals are answered instead of ignored. The system becomes less crowded. Still, calm science also means clear safety. If you have diabetes and use insulin or glucose-lowering medication, it's wise to be careful with post-meal walks because activity can lower blood sugar. If you experience dizziness, unusual weakness, chest pain, severe shortness of breath, or feel unwell during walking, stop and get medical guidance. And if you have heart disease, major mobility limitations, or are starting from a long period of inactivity, beginning gently and checking with a clinician can be a very smart act of partnership with your body, not fear. Walking should feel like communication, not punishment. So where does all of this leave us? Here. The walking threshold is real, but it is not a single magic minute. It is the point where your body becomes confident enough in the pace to shift the fuel mix. Early on, quick sugar plays a leading role. Then, as the effort stabilizes, fat contributes more. If the walk continues, your internal systems coordinate more efficiently, and over time this helps reshape metabolic health, including the conditions that influence abdominal fat. Confusion becomes clarity when you realize your body was never bad at burning fat. It was waiting for the right conversation, the right rhythm, the right level of effort. And maybe the most comforting part is this: your body is not standing in your way. It is trying to protect blood sugar, preserve brain function, support movement, and choose the safest available fuel for each moment. That is not resistance. That is intelligence. The real goal, then, is not forcing a dramatic switch. It is creating a gentle enough environment that the switch can become a smooth handoff. A steady walk, a repeatable routine, a pace you can trust. That is biology, not magic. And when you understand that, wakang starts to feel less like exercise you should do and more like a tool your body already knows how to use. If this makes you see your body differently, tap like. What surprised you most? Did you notice this in your own body? That moment when a walk starts feeling easier, steadier, almost like something inside has clicked into place? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy calm science most videos never explain, subscribe because in the next video, we'll explore what really happens inside your body during a 10-minute walk after dinner and why that tiny habit can change your entire metabolic evening.